Well, we get Robin Curtis today.
I know.
She is such a hoot. I mean, truly, she lightens up any room she's in.
She really is. And, to be honest with you, I had not watched Star Trek 3 until I knew she was coming on the show. And,
That's a demerit, I think.
Yeah, well, look, I've seen more Trek than you have. I know that.
Yeah. I saw it when it came out, most likely.
Oh, did you?
I do remember it.
You were probably, you're a bit younger
84?
than me. So, yeah, you would have been...
84, I was probably 14? 15,
Right.
15? 15, I was 15.
I was deep in the rave scene by then.
There was going to be no Star Trek 3 for you.
Star Trek wasn't floating my boat, honey. Then another huge bear-hugged shout-out to Dave Tabb. Dave, you're a mensch, a prince amongst princes.
You're the man. You're our man.
Yeah.
That might have come out weird, but I hope you know what I mean.
Please join us on our YouTube channel at the Decon Chamber, where you can see us live, if you so want, at 11 o'clock PST on Sunday mornings. Otherwise, you can do it on Catch Up. Where else can you find us, Connor?
You can find us, you join our Patreon. That's very important. And Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local bookstore, AM/PMs.
X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, check us out on Twitter/X, Instagram.
And, of course, Instagram.
Where we post every Wednesday about the upcoming episode, and try to get in a Friday and Saturday post, and just to keep you all up to date as to what's going on.
Yes. So, yeah. Insta.
Graham.
No.
The show has begun. Set your phasers to fun. You're guaranteed for a trip. Slip into the decon with Connor and Dom. It's the Decon Chamber.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Trekkies and Trekkers, welcome back to the Decon Chamber. I'm Connor Trinneer, and as always, I am with my dear friend, co-host, and partner in crime, Dominic Keating.
I know.
We have in the hot seat today just a wonderful, wonderful person. When she walks into a room, her smile and laughter light the place up like a Christmas tree. She has worked on the big screen and the small screen with A-listers and A-holes. And sometimes it's the same person. She replaced as Lieutenant Saavik on Star Trek 3 and 4, Kirstie Alley. But the thing that impressed me the most was that she was able to make the quintessential 80s haircut, the mullet, look very sexy. Robin Curtis, welcome.
Hey.
You are too kind. Thank you. Yeah, boy, that was a very lucky moment in time for me that someone chose not to come back so that I could enter the situation.
What was that like?
And you guys know, didn't have any idea at the time how a relationship with Star Trek as an actor would play out. You know, clueless. So at the time, Connor, it was this enormous thing that was happening to me specifically, but also to my family. My dad had been diagnosed with cancer earlier that year in June, and the screen test and being cast took place in August of '83. And so this was just the best news possible for me, with two parents who had always been supportive of a creative career for me. And it buoyed us, given the background of my dad's health issues. We were struggling, and he was fighting for his life, to be perfectly frank. And so to have Star Trek going on sort of in the foreground, just helped to just lift us up and distract us. And it was just this exciting, freakish, fabulous thing happening to me, but to my family as well.
Right.
And it lifted it up through that entire year. Until the film
it was very much the early launch of Star Trek
Yes.
after the original series, and
Sure.
this is Star Trek 3, isn't it?
Yes, I think still the franchise still finding its sea legs, if you will.
Yeah, if it was going to be a franchise.
Right.
It was all rather in response to Star Wars, wasn't it? Let's face it, we all owe our careers to George Lucas a bit.
Do you think?
Oh, I think so.
Oh, I thought it was maybe the reverse.
No, I think
Lucas
that
owes it to Star Trek.
No, quite. No, I'm
you
afraid
think-
not.
you
No.
think-
Sorry, hate to burst the bubble. No, Star
Yeah.
Wars have been such a massive success.
Yeah.
And then all the studios were like, they were like headless chickens. What are we going to do?
What do we have?
Yeah, and someone at Paramount at the emergency meeting went, don't we own something like that?
Oh.
And that's how it went. And then suddenly they went knocking on Gene's door and got him back in and said, would you think of doing a film?
Yeah.
And that's how that started.
Well, I've got my folklore completely wrong because I
Yeah.
thought it was the fans, spearheaded by some really passionate people
God
about
bless
Star Trek that
Bijo,
wrote their letters.
yeah,
Yes,
and
Bijo
John Trimble, who just passed
yes,
away.
I know.
I
Here's
know.
to John. Oh my
And,
goodness, yeah.
Do you know, I just emailed Bijo's daughter. Bijo has moved up to town. She's living in an assisted living place. And we'll see whether she's game to come on.
Oh,
Wouldn't
wow.
that be
I
something?
thought, wouldn't that be a lovely interview? I thought that would be fantastic. So
I
literally, the
think
email went out
so.
2 days ago.
Sorry.
I was going to say, do you know much about why Kirstie Alley vacated and left the door open for you?
Not really. I kind of, you guys can appreciate this. One actress to another, it seemed to me that if you didn't want to continue with a franchise, so to speak, you just negotiated yourself out of it. That was the gracious way of everybody saving, their face,
Right.
so to speak. And so that was my impression at the time. She was doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof at the Mark Taper. So killing it on stage, and
Yeah.
arguably one of the most enviable roles for any actress to play.
Right.
And Cheers hadn't happened yet.
No.
But yeah, it was my distinct impression. She was choosing now a different path. And only for astronomical amounts of money would she come back. I mean, and let's face it, guys, she didn't come back when Saavik was reintroduced in 6, which most of the fandom knows. Nicholas Meyer was charged, either you hire Kirstie or Robin, two actors who have already played the part, or you must change the name of the character. I know we're all over the place here, but had she wanted to be a part of it again, certainly she would have reunited with Nicholas Meyer, who was her director on 2.
Right.
That's
when Kim Cattrall comes in. And
because it was completely to
Right.
Valeris. But yeah.
would you have minded playing a traitor? I mean, would you have minded having Saavik?
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
some. Dominic, you bring up a good point, and I think that was the reason Gene. I was told later by Majel that Gene Roddenberry put his foot down and just said, this is not what this character was created to do. It's
The fans would have had a
antithesis of
heart attack about it.
I think they probably would have. So it worked out. It worked out for the best. And I know at the time, guys, you can appreciate this. It was hurtful.
Sure.
That they were recasting the role for anybody but me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we're looking for a Deborah Winger type, I think is the way the breakdown went out. And it was like, oh my God, like to be so rejected
Right.
by a franchise that had wrapped its arms around me. Do you know what I mean?
What'd I
it was
do?
hard.
What'd I do?
Yeah, exactly.
Now we've almost got to, who's Deborah Winger?
So
Deborah, if you're watching,
I'm
Dominic's
sorry,
joking.
So which brings up Nick Meyer. I've been told recently by Mike Okuda and a couple of others who have met him that because I connected with him on Facebook. I think he's fascinating. He recommends the most amazing,
Mike?
obscure films.
Mike Okuda.
Nicholas
No,
Meyer.
Nicholas Meyer.
All
Nicholas
right,
Meyer, this man who
Right.
would not hire me,
Right.
And I know we're all over the place here, but they said he might like to hear from you. I thought about Facebook messaging him and saying, you and I have this odd connection. We've never met, and for whatever reason, you rejected me all those years ago. But I think you're really cool, and I love your brain, and I love the things you post, and I think it would be cool to meet for a drink in Manhattan sometime because he goes to the city frequently. So anyway, we'll see.
Did you?
We'll see.
Have you? No?
No, I haven't. I have not reached out. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I'm screwing up my courage for that.
Was Star Trek a part of your life growing up? You just told me a story.
Oh well, so yes, it was. My older brother, Kevin, just by 2 years, but older enough and smart enough to appreciate what the show was really about. He understood the allegory. He understood the moral tales. I was just there in the room watching, and I was so caught up in every week, this gorgeous woman, all sexified, all objectified, with the short skirts and the low cut bodices and the hair. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The
Me
women
too.
on Star Trek were sexy.
Yeah, they were.
sexy women. I just recently watched the episode where the woman never spoke. What the hell was that one? She did everything with her eyes. She was the ultimate empath.
Okay.
In any case, yeah, Connor, I was watching the shows. I wondered. I mean, the dynamic stayed with me. The alien, right, forcing by some omnipotent power, Kirk and Uhura to connect, and Spock and Nurse Chapel to also connect. That stayed with me. This dynamic that someone is watching and the people in the center ring are doing it for that person's entertainment.
Right.
It left its mark on my DNA, and as I evolved as a romantic, intimate, sexual being, it repeats itself with me. And in fact, during the pandemic, when we all had time on our hands, and people were reaching out through the mist and the ether to
Did you get the ears out?
to interview us. No, I didn't get the ears out, but I rewatched that episode.
You did,
because
huh?
I thought to myself, is it what you remember?
All right.
Is that dynamic there that has now stayed with you and repeats with you? And I'm giving away a ridiculously personal secret, but yeah, like when I am having pleasure and I put my head back and close my eyes, I'm there again. I'm right there again, and it's all happening again. And it turns out the episode was exactly as I remembered it. In fact, better. Because
This is the original series episode.
yes,
Right.
Michelle is saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, Captain, whenever I was fearful on the bridge, I always looked at you, and I felt less fear, and I'm trembling now, but I'm not fearful." And then their lips meet, and it's like, oh my God, this is exquisite. It just,
You've been looking for your Captain Kirk ever since, haven't you?
yes, darling. Yes, I have, and I think I may have found him.
him.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, Star Trek has been a very interesting, sexy theme in my life.
It works on multiple levels.
Well, I've often said it was, as a Ted to 8.5, 9-year-old, it was my first foray into erotica, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No kidding.
Please, Marriott Hartley
Yeah.
and Leonard Nimoy in the cave. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And he's so compelled by her, so aroused by her, and she's so stunning a
Yeah.
creature. And he has to make a decision. Do I stay with you forever here?
Right.
And know this incredible
Chiffon
lust and
world.
feeling, yes, right? Or do I go back to the ship? And he has to
Yeah.
go back to the ship. And when they part, I'm just like, I know I was drooling on the 1980s shag carpeting for sure, somewhere along the line. No, it was 1960s. It was the 1960s, right? I was all of
Yes.
10, 11, 12 years old,
All right.
prepubescent and all hormones humming.
Yeah.
And
this works.
Quite impressionable.
It's
Yeah.
still sexy to me.
It is.
It is.
I watched Strange New Worlds, and that Spock and that Nurse Chapel.
Nurse Chapel, yeah.
They're so hot.
They are.
Yeah,
Are they hot? I mean,
they
come
are
on,
hot.
right?
It's a
Ethan?
toss-up.
Yeah.
Ethan might be a bit hotter.
Just two gorgeous
Jess.
people acting,
Right.
acting so beautifully. I've been very inconsistent in my Star Trek viewing because I'll confess I'm not a fan of science fiction to view
never seen your show.
as a rule, but. No, I haven't seen your show.
she's
never
I have
seen
not
it.
seen your
She's
show.
not got
I
a
have not
clue.
seen either of you in a show
Yeah.
ever.
All right.
It's the sexiest. It's the
Cut.
sexiest one.
Are you the
I'm out of it.
sexiest?
And that's
We're
our
all-
show,
that's
ladies and
our
gentlemen. We got 15 minutes in.
She's fired. Yeah.
Well, for your edification, I'm the f***ing captain.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Boom.
I've gone. There it goes. I'm so sorry.
How did you get the audition? How did that come around? What was that story?
You mean for Saavik?
For Saavik, yeah.
Well, when I first came to Hollywood in the January, February of '82, my manager got me those general meetings that they do. And of course, everybody responds to you because they don't know who you are, but they know you came from New York. And so they think that you've got this, they don't
can
want to
act.
miss the moment. They don't want to screw up.
Sure.
All the casting departments, they're like, oh, we got to meet her. And ooh.
Right.
And so literally I had all these meetings at the studios, and I would be walked from one office to another, and I thought, wow, this is going to last 5 minutes, and then we'll see, we'll see how it all plays out, because again, they think you could be somebody, but they don't know. And I went to Paramount, and I met Elsa Bergeron, and she was a lovely lady at the time. And
I'm not sure. Is she casting there?
She
the
was
main
just
casting director?
under Stuart Jensen
Okay.
back in the day, and she remembered me a year later when Saavik came across her desk. And so I went in to meet Stuart and Elsa, and the casting meeting was so the film itself was secretive, so I didn't know what I was auditioning for. I didn't know what I was meeting for. But I remember making the offhanded comment, if I was to be a part of the Star Trek world, I would prefer it be an alien part. And I think that came about because I had auditioned for King Kong, the part that Linda Hamilton ultimately played. And I thought, I just can't take that seriously. I can't take Kong in one gymnasium and Lady Kong in another, and he's having a heart transplant or something. So there was this huge preposterous plot, and I thought, I can't act that. I just don't want to have to act that and take it seriously.
Right.
So out of my mouth came that flippant comment about playing an alien, and I was brought in to meet Mr. Nimoy the very next day.
No kidding.
Wow.
And you guys can appreciate this because this doesn't happen. I met him one-on-one.
Wow.
Just the two of us. Not a room full of people where no one identifies themselves and you don't know quite who you should be focused upon. And you don't know how to recreate whatever got you the second meeting from the first meeting.
Was it just a chat?
It was a chat, Dominic, until he asked me, he said, would you mind reading some lines? And I said, no, not at all. And he said, would you mind if I filmed our chat and what we're doing today? And I said, not at all. So he had our
7 hours later
chit-chat.
when they said it.
Well,
in those days.
Yeah, he was so...
What did he have? He had a Super 8 camera or something?
Well, it was some ancient device was now filming us, and he was so kind. You guys can appreciate this. I had a very thin resume, and he actually asked me about the musical theater parts that I
You've
played
done,
in
yeah, I
upstate
saw
New
that.
York and the
Yeah.
Finger Lakes region. Tell
Right.
me about Odunza. Tell me about Eve and Applause.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, Mr. Nimoy, you're too nice.
You obviously knew that you were talking about Star Trek at this point.
Yes. No, for sure. But I didn't know it was Saavik. And then he gave me some sides to take out in the waiting room and review. And he sent me out saying, think about Vulcans as having 1,000 years of wisdom behind the eyes. And I'm like, oh, okay. We'll just pull that right up on the Rolodex. Anyway, I went out, and I remember Teresa, can't think of her last name. She did the voice, I think, for the ship computer. She was his admin assistant, and she was very sweet, telling me, well, David and Saavik this, and Saavik does that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just did one of those little cram sessions out in the waiting room by myself, and then I went back in, and we put it on tape, and
was it the scene on Genesis with David and
yes,
yeah, right.
Yes.
Right.
And he sent me away. I remember he walked me to his door, and he extended his hand, which I took, and he said, Robin, he said, I have no doubt you could play the part, but he said, now it's up to the powers that be.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, good enough.
Because
My
this was
goodness,
his
thank you, Mr. Nimoy.
directorial debut, wasn't it?
Correct.
And he'd fought pretty hard against the powers that be for two things he wanted. He wanted some of his merchandising. Because we read this in Mr. Shatner's book about Leonard.
Okay.
Suddenly Leonard realised they were selling beer in Japan with his image,
Right.
and all sorts of other crap.
Yeah.
And he was like, and he wasn't seeing a penny of this.
Yeah.
And he played hardball with Harve Bennett.
Oh,
And
okay.
he said, I'm just not doing this anymore unless
Right.
I get some of that merchandising and I want to direct the next movie.
Oh,
And
okay.
he played hardball, and he meant it, and they let him do it. So this was a big risk, to let him take control.
How did you feel about the read? Because sometimes when you have 5 minutes with pages,
Right.
and it's basically
Are you a good cold
read,
reader? Yeah.
and sometimes they're your best audition.
Yes, and I love that you guys know what we're talking about. Yeah, no, I mean, I was a pretty good cold reader, but this was all new territory for me because I'm obviously not the least bit contained in my demeanor. Very,
Even then?
very expressive. Yes, no, I mean, I leak from every orifice, for God's sakes, when I talk, and I gesticulate. You would think I came from a heavily Italian family. So to take on that contained persona I just felt so. It felt so fake. You know, phony, artificial, like nothing's happening.
And
you
you're
ever feel
doing
like you got it? Like
no,
you were able to
I
center
did not
into
feel
it?
that way. I did not feel like I nailed it.
and you're doing it in front of even the master.
Exactly. You know,
know.
grateful to have his guidance, of course, but also, like he can see right through me. And I was eventually cast. I shook his hand again the first day of shooting, and I said, Mr. Nimoy, you seem to think I know what I'm doing, and I do not. And he said, Robin, I'll take you every step of the way. You will never go out on that limb and be, you know, hanging there by yourself. And I said, okay. I said, deal. So he would literally, you know, he'd say, come here, come on, just before that we'd shoot a scene. And we would sit at the edge of the soundstage, and he'd say, let me hear it.
Right.
And I would say the lines, and he'd say, okay, smaller, smaller. And I'm like, I'm barely talking. I don't think I'm moving at all. Is this happening? Am I doing it? Am I doing it right? You know, it's like, oh my God.
The old Jack Lemmon line, if I do anything less, I'll be doing nothing.
Oh my God. Right. So but yeah, no, I loved him for that. I was not the least bit insulted nor offended that he should be so kind of in my space about it. Didn't mind at all. I think a lot of actors might be like, hey, look, I got this. But I was like, no, I need you.
Right.
You know, I really want you to, you know, like the volume, you know, moderate me one direction or another. I'm your Gumby.
Right.
I'm your Gumby.
And that's a unique experience because I'm sure we've all been in on those sets where, I remember one in particular, you know, you come in, you specifically a guest star. And I remember one time I came onto the show and did the first scene. It was a big scene for me. I looked at the director and I said, what do you think? And he goes, well, we cast you, didn't we? And I went,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. I'm
going to take that as yes, it's going okay.
Right.
You know.
And I, yes, we've all shown up on as a guest, and I right away my approach is to totally respect the way everybody's interacting. Like I watch and I wait and I listen to see, do they joke around or are they very serious? Right. You know, because they already have this ambiance that you want to fit into, right? And I remember going on a set, I can't even remember the job. And I thought, oh my God, this director's directing me in such a way I'm making a fool of myself. And then lo and behold, I hadn't seen the show. And it's campy.
Right.
And it needed to be big.
Right.
Yeah.
Unnaturally big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God I didn't push
We
back.
were talking about this the other
know?
day. That Gielgud's, John Gielgud always said, you act according to the style of the thing that you're in.
Yes.
And there are different ways of giving a performance.
Hell to the yes.
What was the set like on the movie then? So, because I mean, there are notorious stories, of course, about you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it a happy set?
It was a
with
very
Leonard
serious
at the helm?
set. It was a very serious
It was
set.
a serious set.
Yeah. In my opinion, it was very serious.
Yeah.
But then I was a little intense. I wasn't myself. I felt such enormous pressure, and I felt so out of my league. Not out of my league in terms of professionalism, in terms of preparedness or anything like that. I just this whole wry Vulcan thing.
So against your grain.
Was it your wheelhouse?
It's not my wheelhouse, guys. It's not.
And you
my
didn't have
wheelhouse.
the luxury of. Did you look at rushes at all? Did you?
No.
No. So you didn't ever know. You just trusted Leonard's eye
completely.
And what he said to you.
And he said, "Go home and you know, do the lines in the mirror and don't move your face."
Yeah.
It's like, okay. It just again, it felt so neck up.
Well,
you know what I
oddly,
mean? I wanted to get into my lower chakra. Oh boy!
But
there
the
goes
part
F again.
doesn't. You know, I watched the film in the last 2 days, and it you know, as if anything else would have gilded a lily, and it would have looked silly. You played it
Right.
beautifully, and yeah, and you Here's the thing, as he just said, we cast you, didn't we? That's 98% of playing a part. Is the minute you come on screen,
Right.
Are you accepted in that part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just don't do too much, sweetheart.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. Listen and react.
And that's the tack
Or
I
don't
took.
react.
Or don't react.
You know, I have to say, you know, and I hope you experienced this as well. When you step into the fraternity of Star Trek, they are so lovely. They the proverbial
Yes.
they, meaning all the other actors, the crew, et
Pretty
cetera.
much.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, each in their own way. Nichelle, Jimmy, Dee,
Right.
George, Walter.
DeForest must have been lovely, I'm sure.
Oh, class
Yeah.
on two
Yeah.
legs. They're each in their own way just lovely human beings.
And he had to wear that costume.
I know, right? I mean, come on.
He looks like he's going to a key party in his Jensen in 1973.
Oh my God! Yeah, just good people, and they and even then, they didn't take it for granted. They were still pinching themselves and understood the enviable position they were all in to be a part of such a enduring
Right.
franchise. And so in a way, it was like, yep, come on in, and now we're going to tell you, speak well of the family. Go out there and leave a good impression because and I mean I would have done that anyway, but I loved that they each understood how to sort of initiate me to
Right.
what this
To the
is,
world.
and that it goes on for decades. It's been 40 years, guys. You've reached out to me literally
50
in
some-
the anniversary month.
40 years since yours, yeah.
1984.
Yeah,
It was
no
released
kidding.
in June 1st of '84. I was in the Riverside Mall with my family, and all our friends and neighbors, right? Up there in Utica, New York.
Right.
It was such a gas.
Did you? Now, the first thing that I noticed in watching Star Trek 3, I don't know who the upholsterer was on those pink chairs.
Oh,
Those
yes.
pink
They're beautiful.
felt chairs. They looked awful.
So salmon pink. Well, not even
Where
salmon
was
pink.
this, on the bridge?
Yeah.
Don't remember that at
yeah.
all.
Yeah.
I was so obsessed with the knobs.
We mustn't trounce too much.
No. I
There
was
are
just
fans out there
knobs
that
and
love
the
it.
switches.
It was maybe of the 80s. I don't know, but like.
Well, here's the thing about it. It was an 80s
You would
film,
have
but
expected this kind of stuff.
I've always find that the first few years of every decade sort of still have 1.5 feet in the decade before
Right.
it. And it was still very
Yeah.
much a 70s looking
Yeah.
piece, without a doubt.
I'm all obsessed with the board. Do you know what I mean? You
buttons
put an
and
actor in
dials.
front of a board, right?
Uh-huh.
And none of it's real.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything. You're not getting you're not really getting information from it unless they line it up such that the words are there on the screen and you're actually
Right.
saying the words. It's like you're masturbating with the board.
Yeah.
And I remember I don't know why I chose to stroke something that didn't move, as if it moved.
Right.
And I watch myself now, and I'm like, you're an idiot. What the hell were you thinking? I was trying to sell it.
Right.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
of course.
oh, this is doing something.
Well, you have to
know,
invent something in your head because
Right.
otherwise you just.
I'll just flip this switch and put that one over and blah blah blah. And
For 2 episodes, I was, button 126 and 322 was good. They were all meant to, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing here, sweetheart? It's just,
yeah.
look like you know what you're doing.
Right.
And then
Type a letter to your mom.
on the next gen, I remember we all had weapons in our hands, and I, for some reason, could not. I would come out from beneath, the space rock or whatever, the planet rock, and go pow pow. I could not stop doing the pow pow. The director had to say, Robin, stop. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I did that my whole childhood.
Same here.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
They said after the first couple of takes, the first time I had the face pistol, because I would go like. They were like, "What's that sound?"
What
and
is
I didn't even
that?
know I was doing it.
Yeah.
I know.
And then they were like, "Connor,
Are you
are you
chewing?
making noise?" And I was like, "No." All right, well, let's go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 10
There was a
all
secret
over
to that.
again.
It was to squeeze the
Tell me.
handle. Just
It
squeeze
didn't
the-
squeeze. It didn't have any.
No, just you just squeeze the handle.
Oh,
And
got it.
That is it
And-
for
Oh,
you.
I was doing this
Okay.
too.
Yeah, and he was also
Maybe
he had recoil.
if it had
know.
some give.
He
but
thought
they
he was on the
didn't.
streets of Chicago
In
in another show entirely.
I thought it was Jim Rockford.
So Leonard was wonderful, wasn't he? He's such a beautiful. We got to know him a bit on his last hurrah when Connor and I followed him and Bill around 7 cities for the convention. It was his last go, really.
Really?
Yeah, and he was already in a wheelchair at this point,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
COPD was kicking in pretty hard.
What is there not to
But he was such an
admire
actor's actor,
about the
wasn't he?
man? An
Yeah.
actor's actor.
Yeah.
Of a director's. An actor's director. What little I know about him, he lived his life with such integrity. He was out with his sobriety,
Yes.
and then out.
Was he sober when he was shooting your film?
He was.
He was, yeah.
He
Right.
was. In fact, I think he's also quite verbal about his sobriety. John Larroquette was in
Right.
the seats, early in the morning getting the makeup done
Right.
because he was in 3
Right.
as Christopher Lloyd's character, Worf. No, not Worf. What am I saying? Krug. Krug's lieutenant or something
Yes,
like that.
that's right.
And he, oh my God, John would tell stories about his insanity. He would do an entire episode of a show as a guest and not remember it.
Really, just
Like
off his
loaded.
face.
Cray.
Wow.
Yeah. So he is a lifelong, magnificently sober human being, and I believe he and Leonard may have had a connection there
Right.
at the time about that. But yeah, Leonard with the COPD and like Yul Brynner many years earlier, don't
Yeah.
even take up this wicked habit. My mother died from COPD.
Did she?
Yeah. So I know what it's like to.
What was Leonard like directing his lifelong buddy Bill? What was that? How did that go down?
So, well, again, I'm sort of the new guy and I'm green. So I was really I guess a good observer. Because as I said, I didn't speak till I was spoken to. I was very well behaved, very poised, very contained. So I'm watching, and we would always like choreograph or what do they call it? Block the scene. And then Bill would join us when we shot it. Like he wasn't there to rehearse it necessarily,
didn't,
right?
right.
And then things would change if they
Right.
weren't to his liking in that moment. Like we'd all adjust to what he liked.
Regardless of who he was in a scene with, it could have.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there might be an adjustment. Like for instance, I remember he came out and it was a scene with me and we placed ourselves, like he insisted now that the blocking be a little different because I was higher on the planet's surface and he was lower on the planet's surface. And I totally respect that, the sensitivity to height, etc.
It's because you're a tall lady, and
I'm a tall
and he's
lady.
not he's not
I'm
a
a
short man.
bit
but
of a
he's not
moose. Yeah.
He's not an especially tall man either.
Yeah. So there was that, but I saw what I saw was a lot of respect and deference to him. What I didn't know at the time, learned later, it was that he was. I think Bill was off doing another film. Like there was pressure on him
Was
to
he?
wrap things up, and then he needed to go to something else, and so. So unlike all the others who were very available and hanging out on set, you know how that is. We all hang around. There's a lot of hanging around, and then brief moments of sprinting through the scene, and then
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Hurry up and wait. We all know what that is. This is what, why people say on talk shows we became a family because that's
Yeah,
all
a
we
lot of
do
time
is
together.
share our lives exactly.
Right.
And Bill was removed, like he wasn't a part of that as the other actors were. And it's a shame. I don't know that I ever even had more than 2 minutes of small talk with the man,
Really, yeah.
which is okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm not complaining. It was almost the same way with Patrick Stewart, but for a different reason. Do you know what I mean? Like he really was engaged. They changed scenes one day, and I marveled at how this man took a whole scene of dialogue. The Star Trek dialogue, the multisyllabic, high-techy, gobbledygooky words.
Babble.
Blah!
And especially,
And
actually,
he
those,
wraps his brain around it in a matter of minutes. I was like,
Right.
oh my God.
Yeah.
That stuff does not come out of my mouth naturally.
No, I did notice that. I mean, I watched a bit of Gambit, and it was a very high-tech couple of episodes. There was
Hell
a lot of
yeah.
gobbledygook.
Yeah. And he's amazing.
We had to say a bit.
In your show,
Yeah.
which I've never seen.
Yeah.
I was terrible
Damn,
at it.
I'm going
I
back.
was terrible at it. In fact, literally at the end of every season at our brat parties, we would have
blooper reel
The
was-
blooper reel.
He was.
It was a lot. It was a lot of me.
I was.
Oh my God.
I was
yeah.
enviable actually because people would be howling at Christmas. Connor's.
Tom's like, I got all my lines right.
I just this honestly, there was never anything for me. There was one scene we were doing in the armory. It was so late at night, and he just couldn't get this thing out.
You know how that
And I
happens.
literally got a post-it note and stuck it on my forehead. Went, fucking read it.
Let's go home.
Let's go home.
Oh my Lord, yes. I feel for you. I get it.
You know,
Same way.
we don't know much about you in your earlier days. You're from New York
Mills.
New York Mills.
A little textile mill town
Up
outside
north?
Utica, New York, east of Utica. Little town, you got to. I was a big fish in a little pond, and I happened to be one of those kids. Our school system, rather, although small, had a kick-ass music teacher. I mean, she was a tour de force. Jo Gatza was her name then. Her name now is Jo Thackeray, and we're still close. She's like a second mother
No
to me. She
kidding.
lives in Northern California.
That's great.
Oh, she would galvanize the entire school into that goddamn musical.
Put a
So
show on, right?
Yeah, she got the techie kids involved in the the nerds involved in the tech. She got the athletes to do the comedic roles. She got people to dance that never did a two-step. She got the kids that were handy with their hands to build the sets. And my mother was a very accomplished musician, so she and Joe would do dual pianos. And I gotta say, 2 pianos sounds, maybe with a drummer and a bass guitar sounds like the whole orchestra,
Right, right.
for a little high school like New York Mills. 93 people in my class, graduating class. So that's what I mean about small.
Yeah.
So I got to have a blast being in sports, student government, the music program, all aspects of the music program. I played the oboe in the band, but then I marched with the glockenspiel. I was a cheerleader. Sometimes I'd have to be in my marching band uniform and then change into my cheerleading uniform and then back to
Right.
like that kind of a school. You'd finish your field hockey game and then come home on the bus or come back to the school on the bus, and my mother would bring me a tuna fish sandwich because I had a rehearsal that night.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I figured out when I went to college, you can't do it all. It ain't like our little town.
Right.
So I chose music, and I was.
You
in a
sing,
very,
don't you?
I did. I did back in the day. I must say, I think one of the skills, or perhaps self-awarenesses, it's important to have is what can you do and what can't you do. And yes, I could sing, but I wasn't great. But I think I could sell a song as a character.
Right.
Well, there
And
you
you
go.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And in fact, up until that point, and all through college, I did musical theater. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to act without the music, because the music for me was it put me in my body, it put me in my character, and I didn't even know that I suddenly had changed the way I walked and the way I talked, and I was now, whoever, Nancy.
I was going to say you played Nancy
in Oliver. Yeah.
I used
As
to know
long
Lionel
as he
Barton.
needs me, I know where I must be.
Lovely.
Yeah, I did all the wenches of musical theater. Yeah, love it.
Me too.
But so without the music, it was like, oh my God, what's my left hand doing? I don't know what my left hand's doing.
Right.
I don't know how to be. Like, I just didn't know how to be. And so I don't know that I was cut out for stage.
Did you
beyond
train?
the musical theater? And then when I first auditioned for on camera in New York, it looked like sheer terror. My smile, because I was selling it to the
Right.
last row.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's weird. Again, the pandemic. There were people that I went to school with that reached out to me after we graduated once I lived in the city. And I backed into it, guys. I went to the city because I didn't have any better plan. I had a 4-year degree with a major in communications.
Where'd you go?
SUNY Oswego. Back in the day, it was actually a pretty cool crackerjack theater school. A lot of good designers and costume people came out of Oswego. In any case, there I was in the city. I'm waiting tables. I had a great place to live right out of the gate. I just sort of got very lucky. And this classmate reaches out to me. I'm there in New York weeks. Hey, this girl dropped out. We're doing backers auditions on this little musical. The guy who wrote it, he's really talented. He's like a young Stephen Sondheim. It's very complex music, sophisticated lyrics and stuff like that. But I think you could do it. If you just came and sang for him, you'd get in. I'm like, okay. So off I went and I sang for this guy. I got in. It was on its feet within weeks. Again, I moved to the city in the fall of '78, and by the early that year, '79, I was in a show. A SUNY Oswego graduate, 8 years my senior, came to see it, said, I want to introduce you to my agent. She was very, very, she worked in the commercial voiceover arena. I met her agent. They took me on. Old Lester Lewis and his wife Juliet never had children. She smoked Pall Malls. He smoked a pipe. Hey, kid, it was, very sort of stereotypical
Right.
agent. Most of his lunch was still in his beard when he came back from the Four Seasons. You know what I mean? Lester and Juliet took me on, sent me out on commercial auditions. I got my first commercial. It's June of 1983. 1982. I'd only been in New York a few months for Oil of Olay.
Big one.
And they flew me. I get Taft-Hartley. I get flown out to Colorado to stand next to a horse. and talk about younger looking skin out in the snow. Oh my God. I mean, I was so freaking lucky.
Oh, great.
And didn't have to blood, sweat, and tear it. It didn't mean more than anything.
What was the horse? I don't know what the horse was.
And guess who called me in? It was the same young lady, Nancy Wade is her name. We're still in touch with each other. The one who called me for the musical, calls me into Ted Bates' agency back in the day. She said, "Do you want to see your auditions?" She was an assistant to the casting director, and I said, "You'd show me my of course." And that's when I learned that I was doing everything way too big.
Right.
I was selling way too much because I came from the musical theater world. So Nancy Wade, when Facebook came to be decades later, I remember finding her, and I'm very much a voyeur with Facebook. I don't interact very much. I just think, who cares what I had for goddamn breakfast and what the sunset looked like
Thank God.
while it was happening, right? But anyway, I love when other people post that stuff. But I saw Nancy there, and I said, "Nancy, I don't know if you know this, but you were one of the angels, along the way. You called me for that play. I got it. I got an agent. Then you called to let me see my auditions, and it made all the difference in terms of my, the arc of my understanding how it all worked. I don't know that I would even be standing where I am today if it weren't for you. And we didn't stay in touch all those years, and I regret it. And because I was off to LA when I was 25, I was coming close enough to things, guys, in the city. That my manager or my agents in New York connected me with a manager in LA, and they said, "You got to get to LA. There's not enough happening here. We're not booking enough. What do they call the new shows?
Pilots.
Pilots.
Yeah.
Pilots.
Well,
and
at that
type
time,
of thing.
nothing was really going on in New York in
Yeah,
terms
yeah.
of.
Not
Was
much
there
at
even
all.
a TV show in New York?
No,
You
I
did
don't
General
even think.
Hospital, didn't you?
I did years
yeah.
later.
So
Yeah,
you
years
did a
later.
soap,
Oy, oy,
but,
oy.
yeah. You didn't like that?
What a trial and tribulation that was. Well, Gloria Monty had come back. She'd been away from the show and then had come back. And I was not a General Hospital watcher, but I remember in college, people were like, Luke and Laura, the rape, and then they marry. Oh my God, this was
Right.
like amazing television. And they were bringing Luke, Tony Geary, back to play Luke's cousin, Bill.
Sure.
Right? Yeah,
Because
right?
you could do that.
And happens to be his twin. And I get hired to play his love interest. And it was, and so it was this whole new, layer to the show, storyline. But it didn't last more than 20 episodes. And I love it because nothing's changed since then. I get the script and I said to the makeup people, this reads like I'm not coming back. Like I walk out of Bill's trailer and I kind of tell him what for. And we could not get an answer out of anybody. Am I done? Am I gone?
Right.
Are you letting the character go? It just they don't tell you.
No.
You're just supposed to gather that.
Yep, I fell down an
By-
elevator shaft off
So
camera
what do you mean?
on
You,
a soap opera.
let me ask you. You shoot your last scene. You don't know that it's your last scene.
No.
But you never hear from them ever
You
again.
never hear from the, You don't ever get a script on your door again.
Ghosting
Right.
before they even knew what ghosting was.
Exactly,
Right.
Dominic. It was the weirdest thing. I thought,
right.
Jesus Lord, can't
You've been
somebody
soap
make a
opera
phone
ghosted.
call?
I know.
All right.
And let's go back to this. We started with this. I kind of felt back in the day when did you guys know Richard Arnold?
Oh,
Yeah, of
I
course.
called him the head gabbler not head gabbler, the head hopper of our.
Had a
because-
gobbler, that might have worked as well.
I was going to say I called him Heather Gabler.
Yeah, he was the
One way or
gossip.
another, he was a header.
Yeah, he was a header. No.
God bless you, Richard.
Oh my God! You drive overnight between two towns with him in the Midwest and hear all of his stories. Oh my God, the guy was full of stories and a great keeper of Star Trek gossip. But yeah, I get a call and he.
What did he
says-
say about me?
Well, I don't know what he said about you, but he calls me and he says, "Robin, Star Trek 6 is in pre-production, and I've got some good news and some bad news." And I'm like, okay.
Which one first?
Start with the good. He goes, Saavik's in the script like crazy. I'm like, okay, what's the bad news? He goes, it's not going to be you. It's anybody but you. They're recasting the role. And I mentioned this earlier. I was absolutely heartbroken. And I thought at the time, God, how hard would it have been for somebody to call me, not Richard. He wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He wasn't the person to do that. And then you just realize that's not what Hollywood is. Do you know what I mean? When I was leaving, when I made the decision to leave in my early 40s, I was 43, and I had reconnected with somebody from my childhood, and we were going to marry, and I thought this was a good decision because we had this history together. So I was leaving LA to go live with him in Cincinnati. And I said to my ex-husband, my first husband, I said, Kent, I'm going to take a full-page ad in Variety. And he goes, why? And I said, because I want to tell people like Leslie Decter and Norman Seeff and these people that I loved so much and I loved working with and just gave me such rich work experiences. Leonard Nimoy, I want to thank them. He goes, Robin, they don't care. They don't save your money.
Yeah.
It was going to be $1,000 to get this full-page ad. And I thought, no, we don't get a watch. We don't, nobody says goodbye. There is no goodbye. You just fade.
Right.
So,
They take away your parking pass.
exactly.
And
Or
then
you just don't
that's
get another
about it.
script on your porch.
Right.
Yeah,
how
that's
it
pretty
goes.
much it.
Yeah.
You're only as good as the
So-
last 5 minutes you were in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I left without the ad, without announcing my departure.
Was it personal or was it professional or a combination of the two that made you want to leave
Good
town?
question. So, God bless Meryl Streep. Back in my early days as a member of the union, she really highlighted the disparity, the unfairnesses between actresses and actors. I think it was the most stark example of it was Out of Africa. Here it was her film, and something like Robert Redford got paid $6 million and she got $3 million. And she also, guys,
And he didn't do the accent.
No, right? He didn't have any heavy lifting.
Would you pay money for that anyway?
And she also highlighted like the horrible statistics of the day. It was rather like very similar to a woman's chance of getting pregnant with her own eggs over the age of 40, 43, whatever. Just your potential for income dropped dramatically
Out
because
to
the roles
pasture.
dropped dramatically, and yet there were still that same wonderful group of women. When I left the business, I left the waiting rooms with really talented people in them who I understood would outclass me in that moment. The Marge Helgenbergers, the Christine Lattis, Wendy Malicks. I sat there in those rooms and I went, I love your work. I love your work, and I understood how it worked. Again,
Gosh, I mean,
self-awareness.
it is
Self-awareness. You got, it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, thank God that you could have some.
Right.
And
No,
you're in the. I
totally.
remember ringing my manager when I first got to town and going, John Leguizamo was there, and so and so was there, and he just went, "Welcome to the major leagues, Dominic."
Yeah.
And I was-
yeah.
no.
And I loved those waiting rooms because for the most part, 99% of the actresses in those waiting rooms got it. Like we would all greet each other warmly, lovingly, supportively. And I knew if you got it, it was yours. It was always yours.
Right.
And if I got it, it was my turn. And we all kind of knew if we just kept showing up, eventually we'd all work and hang in there. And so there wasn't that sense of, crawling over each other to get something.
Right.
If you understood there's only one you, then you understood that there is no competition really. I know that sounds weird, but there isn't, because if it was meant to be you, it was going to be you all along. And we also all know, guys, the high tides lift all boats. Those that you surround yourself with, whether it's in college and post-college, or once you start working, we know that the most successful people had people advocating, they all took each other up together.
Right. Right.
Probably one of the best examples is De Niro and Scorsese and Pesci.
Keitel and
Yeah. I mean, look at the marvelous ensemble they've been all these
and the
years. in their own
Chicago
right.
Mafia that
Thank
did
you,
the
thank
same.
you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I
The
get tingles.
Steppenwolf people.
Yeah. So, does talent get you the job, we all know.
No.
It's very often
Everybody's talented, love.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with
Yeah.
anything.
And they
And
most
so you-
often get it right
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the casting,
Yeah.
you know. And if it's not you, you can feel like it's supposed to be you because hopefully you've got a strong enough ego and work ethic that
Yeah.
you've done the job in the audition the best of your ability, and then
Yes.
you look at the thing, and you know, I would say 9 times out of 10, you kind of go, "Yep,
Yeah.
that looks about right,"
Yeah.
and it's not you.
Right. Yes.
That's the
I've-
hard. That's one of the tenets of the business is taking the knocks, the slings and
is.
arrows
It
of the
is.
outrageous fortune, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is, and getting used to that. There's a
may-
million reasons why you didn't get cast, and and none of it's got to do with you didn't act it well.
Right, and
You know?
and we know how fickle
Yeah.
it is. I mean, it might be so and so knows so and so.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
that-
Oh,
it-
it's
it- you
generally
know,
that.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
you're blonde and they
Yeah,
want to,
yeah.
you know,
Or you
especially
look like
for
my
the,
nephew,
especially
and
for
I
the
hate
girls.
my nephew.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or my wife said that she thought you were sexy. That's it. You're
you're
done.
not in this.
I think without realizing it, I kept the business at arm's length for that reason, so my heart wouldn't be broken again and
Right.
again, and only once or twice did I let myself care
Yeah.
care a lot,
Right.
you know, and
And it is heartbreaking when you don't get those
is.
jobs that you've. I've had a
Yeah.
couple. Yeah.
yeah.
It is.
Did you miss it?
And you know that they're the ones
D-
that could push you through the
oh,
eye of the
oh.
needle to the next.
Oh
level.
my God! So I bet we all have a good story. Like for me, it was the movie of the week about Jackie Kennedy.
I saw
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
played it. Yeah.
Well, I played it. I
So-
played it in a movie of the week about LBJ.
Ah.
I finally somebody came around and cast me as Jackie Kennedy, and I was
Right.
only in the film for a
But there was
nanosecond.
another Jackie Kennedy.
But I got to meet Randy Quaid and Patti LuPone, who I love.
Oh, brilliant.
But the movie of the week that starred Jacqueline Smith
Right.
about Jacqueline Kennedy, I was this close. It was going to be me.
You
All my
and,
life,
You and Jackie Smith. Right.
So
Has she done Charlie? Was this Charlie Angels era, or was it?
Good question.
post-
Had
maybe
she
post
done it or
that,
not?
probably.
I think she may have done Charlie's Angel.
So
already.
that's the
So she had
draw. Yeah.
exactly.
You know.
She it was mine until she went. I think I want to play that
Right,
part, and then
right.
it was. But when I went to do the test,
Yeah.
they made me up, and it was scary. I looked in the mirror and I was her,
Jackie
and
Kennedy.
even the girl waiting to be made up, like who was this second test, she's like, "Oh yeah, no, oh yeah."
Going home.
Packing a
Yeah,
handbag.
I'm leaving. I'm going. It was pretty cool. Yeah, phenomenal makeup artist. I wish I could remember that man's name because it blew my mind. It blew my mind, and it was so fun to inhabit that for a while. And I knew how good he'd done it when I was hired a year or two later to play her as a very small supporting role, and how perfectly that person did the makeup and wig. I was like, oh God, I wish I had that.
I
dude
look
from
like
2
her
years ago.
sister.
I know. Anyway, yeah.
Who played LBJ in that production? Do you remember?
Randy Quaid.
How great.
Oh yeah.
And
He's a lot of fun. He
Is he?
wasn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel badly that he's kind of gone off the deep
He
end.
has.
But mental health in this country, good Lord, it
Right.
can strike any one of us. Oh!
Right.
So,
well, and
Hopefully.
yeah, and in our profession, I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's not a breeding ground for sanity.
for sanity. No.
Right.
Well, we all have to have a little bit of crazy.
I think you
right, to
do,
do
don't you?
this.
I mean, you really
Just
do.
a little bit.
Olivier always said, at the end, the core of every actor is look at me, look at me, look at me, look at
Ooh,
me.
and see, I don't have that in me.
Don't you have that in you?
I don't even want to be the center of attention at my wedding. It's like, oh no, oh
Not,
no.
no, but, not even as a,
Isn't that
not
weird?
even as as someone else.
Nope.
The camouflage and the guise of.
My favorite performing is in a singing group, and if I was on my own part, it would be even better. But if I'm singing the same part with two people, and there's like 10 of us, like if I was in an a cappella group, that would be my favorite, most thrilling way of performing. I love that when people create harmony.
Were you able to keep your artistic yayas going when you left? An outlet of.
Not really. No, I moved to Cincinnati. Well, no, that's I lied. I lied, Connor. I moved to Cincinnati and immediately became politically active because I don't know if you know this, but since Cincinnati's like sort of right in that weird kind of underbellies part of the country, you know, I remember I was there for like 2 weeks and I figured out, oh my God, chlamydia, highest rate in the country because the sex ed is nil. There's none.
Wow.
Is it part of that quad state area?
Yeah,
it is.
it is. Kentucky, Indiana,
Right there in the Rust
and
Belt.
Ohio. Yeah.
So it's
So I was immediately active in the National Organization for Women and volunteering at Planned Parenthood and all sorts of things along those lines. But I started writing a one-woman show.
That's
I
right.
had begun earlier, but then
Not My
coalesced
Bra.
really in a well. Thank you. That's a very old title. Not My Bra. You don't. The point was don't burn it. I have breasts that aren't exactly symmetrical, and I need it because it looks very odd to have, you know, one nipple here and one nipple there. It's rather rather Salvador Dali. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, well, but most women are like that. Most women, you know, and men are like that as well. If you didn't know. But in any case, okay,
you know,
so
when I go home, I'm going to check now.
God dang it, she was right.
look down, and I'm sure it's not even Steven. But anyway, it's not My Bra You Don't any longer.
How long is it since you've done that
It's
woman
called
show?
A Good Girl.
It's called A Good Girl now.
The Sexual Odyssey
Of
of
a Good Girl.
now it would be a 67-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother used to sing me a lullaby every night. Robin is a good girl. Everyone loves Robin. Daddy loves his Robin girl. Mommy loves her Robin. Everyone loves Robin. So I grew up with like all this love. My father would put a kiss in my palm and fold my hand around it. And then I would put a kiss in his palm and he'd go out the door like, good night, I love you, good night, I'll hold it all night. You know, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the kind of love I got. And my parents were very physically expressive people, very affectionate,
nice.
passionate people, and we lived in a small house, one bathroom, so bodily functions were nothing to be embarrassed about, no shame. The body was a beautiful thing. You know, you got to go, I got to put makeup on, UPL, whatever, bathing, whatever. We just were all free. And so, and I was coming of age, guys, in the 70s when abortion became legal. Birth control became available for women. Girls, the roles were shifting such that a girl could ask a boy out if she wanted to. She didn't have to wait for goddamn Sadie Hawkins Day anymore. I was coming of age during that time, and because of I think my family and being comfortable in my body and kind of always getting the message that pleasure is good. And you know, I mean, not to go crazy with it, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. My parents weren't having sex in the middle of the living room floor or anything.
Oh,
like
Mom
that.
and Dad.
Oh God,
Come
no,
on.
but
We're Californians.
Not again.
oh, look away. Anyway, no, yeah, I leaned into all of that. I leaned into it hard, and I was very expressive, and so, and I would tell my stories in those waiting rooms I mentioned to all the women friends, and they would be like, you know, over the years, you got to write that down. Like every time I came into a waiting room, they're like, okay, what's going on with you? Who are you dating? What's happening? Well, tell us the story.
Right.
And I'd have some crazy ass story about my love life, and I started to write it down. I did question who would want to know about that, or whatever it may have been, and it turns out, you know, I had something to say. I did have something to say, and I did have a story to tell. And I've done it at the conventions, believe it or not, at midnight at Dragon Con, in the bowels of the hotel, kind of thing. And people went ape. It was a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
But I'm shy about it because it's so. I tell the truth. I speak very frankly about every aspect of sex, sexual STDs, infertility, you know, having babies, not having babies, adoption, marital sex, you know, oral sex, all of it. It's all there.
When are you doing it again?
I know, right?
Highly informative.
And
I'm a front row
and
seats.
Star Trek is there.
And-
Star Trek is there. You know, when I was coming of age and having planted that seed of deriving your pleasure at the behest of someone who has power over you. You know, like I told you, that stayed with me. We women, we have a whole Rolodex. We've got floppy disks up there, guys, with all sorts of on it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we don't discriminate. And it, you know, and when the moment comes, you're like, flick, 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 flick. Oh, maybe that one. No, maybe this one. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Woohoo! And I don't know what you men do.
We have one.
But you have
We
one.
have one floppy disk. And on it,
And sometimes-
and on it is what do you want to do?
Right? Well, isn't that sweet?
It's not
But-
good when it's all floppy, though.
What?
oh, not good when it's all floppy. Oh, my
Two
goodness.
floppy disks.
We've just descended.
Right.
It's all over. That's our show. What else did I want to ask you about Saavik? I know, you know, well, what?
Well, so there's
So I was
something I would
talking-
love to talk about.
Talking about the erotica
What
stuff.
I can't talk about. Someone who has the ability to do so has pulled Saavik out of the cobwebs,
right.
and
Which is why you're in town.
it's why I'm in town. And I'm feel enormously grateful and blessed and all of it. And I'm not allowed to speak about it, but it's going to be really cool when it sees the light of day, and it should be very soon. I know what we're sort of in the second week of June here. It's very soon, like within weeks.
Oh, how
We'll,
exciting.
we'll all get to sort of relish something that's very special.
Isn't it fun to
And
talk
I'm
about
stoked.
things you can't talk about?
I know,
It's hard. You're like,
right?
I just want to. Well,
It's
hang on
like,
it. Nope. Yeah.
Well, you guys know I'm 40 years into this. How many years are you into this?
25.
Okay,
26,
so yeah, you're definitely senior citizens in this deal. I go to conventions. I still have a ball.
Yeah.
There's always something fun and fresh. In fact, that's how I got to know you guys. I wouldn't even know you guys if it weren't for the
Agreed.
conventions, and I love you guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Likewise.
You know, we've all become friends over the years. As long as I can walk and talk and chew gum at the same time, you know, and I have all my marbles, and I'm called out to be a part of some fun that the fans are having, I'll go. You know what I mean? And I've got some fun things coming up this year that way. The cruise, I'll finally get to do the CBS
Oh, great.
cruise next year, which will be fun. Again, this project I can't speak of, but there is something I can speak about. A young filmmaker, Dave Campfield, pulled me out of the ether a year and a half ago to do a movie. I shot it last June, a year ago now, and he is just now putting the finishing touches on this low-budget horror film. But it's a very...
The Awaken the Reaper?
Yes, Awaken the Reaper. And it stars Lou Gossett Jr., who God bless him,
last film.
just left us recently, and Lance Henriksen from Alien fame.
I like Lance. He's
yeah.
great
He's a
fun.
great guy.
Yeah, he pulled some old timers like me and those guys out of our sleepy little lives, and made I think a good little movie. It's not my genre; it's a horror genre, but it's psychological horror.
Right.
So I didn't. I said, do I have to stab anybody? Does anybody have to stab me? No. So I play a psychiatric nurse, and it was a lot of fun. I gotta say, it was fun. I was so nervous about memorizing. Used to be so easy for me, and now I get freaked out about it.
It's a thing, isn't it?
And it all came out. It all came out. I did
Right.
okay. Once I had another actor, you know how it is when you have an actor who's there and present with you and giving to you. Your brain functions and you're right there and you lock on and you're, I'm home.
Right.
I'm home.
And it's a beautiful thing.
It isn't it?
And it's mindful of just why we love doing it. And when a scene goes like swimmingly, and you go, oh, we were right there.
Yeah.
He and I read together when we audition occasionally. Still.
Oh, nice.
And it's
You give
always
each
a
other.
joy.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is.
You
You've got a
the-
shorthand also in terms of like maybe just a
Yeah.
and a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, yeah, I got you.
And
You
both
can't
of us
act-
know what that means. And
Yeah. You can't act in a bubble.
No.
No.
It's the intersection. It's what's happening in the air between you that matters. A little dig on Shatner. Say shame on me, Bill. You're fantastic, by the way. Boston Legal. Forget about it. I worship at his feet over that one show. I thought it was brilliant. But when I was working with him, and the camera was on me, you know how the close-up stuff and the other person's off camera.
giving you nothing.
He wasn't looking at my face.
No.
And I came off and I said to Nichelle, Bill wasn't looking at me. Like, it was very hard to focus because I was doing the scene with him. And she said, oh, honey, I've been acting to Bill Shatner's nose for years.
Yeah.
So she would focus on his nose so that
Right.
his eyes weren't
Really?
throwing
Yeah.
her off.
Right.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
that wild? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all know how that is. We either make a safe space for the other actor or we make the other actor a little unsure of
Uncomfortable. And
themselves.
some people do that
Yeah.
on purpose.
Possibly. I mean, maybe he thought he was making me better.
No.
I don't know,
don't
but it
think
wasn't. It was.
No, it's always on purpose.
No.
Are you
No.
are you dipping your toe back in to?
Well, I do appear to be, don't I?
Yeah, it sort of
but I'm
sounds like it.
still I got so many plates in the air, guys. I'm a full-time real estate agent, but I like to think I'm looking at the finish line, meaning, in a matter of months or a year I'll be done with it. I've met somebody fantastic, so I was hoping that I would make those big life decisions with my future partner, and I think I've found him, and it'll be really fun to sort of work that out together. Where do we want to be, and how do we want to spend our time? That's another thing, guys. You reach a 1099 career end, and you go, did I save enough? Did I invest well enough? What the have I got in that little investment pie that I saved? And what are you getting from Screen Actors Guild, and what are you getting from your SAG pension and your Social Security and whatever? And so just like back in the day when I used to say my income was the little tape and paste and glue, putting these different jobs together. That commercial, that guest star, that B movie with Roger Corman, and I'm like, I made it. I made my living again.
Yeah.
I think I can do it. Is my point. I think I'm in a good enough place to do it financially. I'm not richer by any means. Isn't it wild that people think we make boatloads of money and we're floating in the money? It just blows my mind that, I'd love to kill that myth right now.
Yeah.
Again, that was another myth Meryl Streep might have shed a light upon all those years ago. Like 3% of us, 3% of the membership make a livable wage, can live.
Our strike
on
was
what they
about
make.
that very much.
Correct.
The ability to have just a middle class lifestyle at best and
Right?
that's for almost all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the 3%ers they're
Well,
on the hill.
the miserable part is look, we got 4 years on a show, and we got paid. It was proper money, but it was for 4 years.
Right.
We got taxed.
Right.
Like I was making that money for the rest of my life.
Right.
I wrote one tax bill to the IRS one year. I think it was for $375,000.
Oh my God, that's a house.
Yeah, I had to write that to give that money away 1 year.
Whoa.
I did a load of conventions, a couple of other jobs,
Excuse me.
and
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
season of Star Trek.
No, I know.
And I can't tell you how painful it was to write that
and
check out.
it's not the 25% that goes to your manager and your
Thank
agent.
you.
That
No.
comes out of your
Yeah, that comes out of that.
And so whatever it was that you accumulated over 4 years, if you didn't invest it really smartly
Yeah,
and be very conservative in
Yeah.
your lifestyle, it's not gonna take you 30 years,
no.
Oh no.
is it? You know what I mean? Like,
And to be in your early 30s,
yeah.
you've got money for the first time.
And that's not how you're thinking.
That's not how you're thinking.
You're
at
not
all.
thinking I
Well,
need this when I'm
luckily I
70.
had a few years on the other lads.
Right. So you knew.
But I knew to
Yeah.
sock most of it away. I mean,
Yeah.
God knows, I remember doing one of my first jobs in London. I did a commercial for Barclays Bank, and I went out spending on the strength of this was going to be a big earner. And then they cut me out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I suddenly had a new pair of boots, half a new car, a couple of champagne nights out,
Right.
Yeah.
and
And that was
a
it to
great
show
big
for it.
credit card debt.
Yeah.
And I never did
Can you
that.
take these back?
I never did that again, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I sit. I'm on the board of Syracuse Stage, which I'm really proud of. I finally
nice.
put my big girl pants on and did something, in the community. Really, really wonderful outfit. We're associated with Syracuse University, and our artistic director and managing director came in 7 years ago when I came in as a board member, and they're just incredible people. Bob Hupp came up from Arkansas Stage rep. Anyway, and we just had two shows within the last 3 years go to Broadway. One was How to Dance in Ohio, and the other one was Thoughts of a Colored Man. So we're really proud of the fact
Wow. Well,
that it
Syracuse
played
Stage
again
is-
on our stage and went to the city.
It's been known to be a
Oh,
really
that's
quality theater
that's
for a
nice
long
to
time.
hear, Connor.
Mhm.
That's nice to hear. We are Jiva's in Rochester, but we are the. When they say biggest, I guess they mean budget or the numbers in a particular
Right.
year. We are the biggest Lort theater outside of Manhattan in the state of New York.
Wow.
That's something to be able to say, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What made
Yeah.
you get on the board?
Well, my former partner and I built a house for a couple, and that the gal of the couple is an engineer attorney for National Grid, and she said, you're an actress. I'm on the board. You should be on the board. I'm like, Janet, I don't know wealthy people.
Didn't you say,
Isn't that
"Damn
what
it,
boards
Janet"?
do? Pardon?
You didn't say, "Damn it, Janet"?
Damn it, Janet. Yes, I did. and she said, no, we need creative people. We need just people who love the theater. I'm like, okay, I'll let you submit me as a potential member. And I've loved it. It's like being with your peeps again.
Yeah.
So yeah, very nice. And they tapped
So who's
me.
sleeping with who?
I know, right? Honestly, there's no drama there. I've tried, but no drama there. I'm the single girl on the board. No, they're all married. Attorneys and doctors all married. Anyway, yeah, they were sweet. They tapped me for the voiceover for the 50th anniversary film, 3-minute film that they did, and it was very, very sweet. That somebody figured out. Yeah, I'm just sort of on the board, and take advantage of me.
Right.
I'll do it. I'll do it for free. I loved it. So, yeah, but I haven't been on their stages. Again, I'm not interested in that. Do you know what I mean? I became a member of Equity doing an industrial show in Munich 35 years ago. Or no, more like 40 years ago.
That's fun.
I know, right? No, but I mean, what a weird way to
No
become
one
a
does
member of
industrial
Equity.
shows like the Germans. let me tell you.
It was for the Singer Sewing Industry Company. And we're over there, 4 actors and I, singing our hearts out for Sri Lankans and Jakartas and yeah, all these people from the Far East. And that's how I got my
Indonesians, I think
Equity
you're
card.
looking-
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, strange our careers and their evolution and how these things unfold.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Well,
Well,
we never thought we'd be chat show hosts. And,
True.
And here we are. And what a lovely
And you
chat
do it well.
it has been, darling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Oh,
tickled
it's
pink
our
and
pleasure.
so good to see you.
look forward to seeing you out there in the shows and stuff.
And you're gonna be in Vegas?
Stay healthy, stay well. Of course, I'll be
Yeah.
in Vegas.
So we're going to have a few decon party chamber.
Awesome.
Decon chamber
be
parties
there.
in Vegas. So
Yeah.
come to those and grace our stage there.
I'd love it.
Oh, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mwah, mwah. You guys. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
My heart.
Robin.
Robin Curtis. It was all true.
So you can see our show on the YouTube channel, the Decon Chamber. We air Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Please join us. Like and subscribe. It's very important.
And if you love what we're doing here, please, you have to play your part and join in. Join us on Patreon, please.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, check us out on Twitter/X, Instagram,
and of course Instagram.
where we post every Wednesday about the upcoming episode.
Wherever else you get your podcasts.
Yep.